up dive. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, so I remember I share and subscribe. Join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Spectrum here on the Untold Radio Network. I am your host, Barnaby Jones. Today, we are live in studio. That's right. Good morning, Lee. Lee is already with us today. Off to a great start here. So, guys, if you have questions or comments throughout the show, throw them in the comments section. We'll get to them as soon as we can. Coming up, guys, from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, we are going to be in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, February 9th for the Oshkosh Beyond the Veil Expo by Metapara Promotions. It's going to be a great time there. I'm going to be speaking, and we're going to have a booth set up. And then, guys, coming up in April, we are going to be at the Midwest Metaparacon in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, as well as my guest today is going to be there as well, but he will talk about that in a little bit. And after that, guys, we are headed to Appleton, Wisconsin for the Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention, May 9th, 10th, and 11th. On the 9th, we are doing a VIP dinner with some of the guests at the show, as well as a Bigfoot hike in Oconto County, Wisconsin. Saturday is the convention proper, with over 30 vendors already signed up. And we have a lovely lineup of speakers: Stacy Brown Jr., Miranda Young, Scott and Hannah Violet, Chad Lewis, Angela Zabel will be doing a gallery reading Saturday night. And myself, Keg, Rick, and Barbara, all from my haunted hometown, will be there speaking about our personal paranormal experiences as well. And then Sunday, we wrap up with a paranormal investigations in Appleton area. Then if you guys can't make it out in person, you can get yourself a virtual ticket to the event. Virtual tickets you can watch either live or at your convenience, and you won't miss out on a thing. And then, guys, on June 7th, we head down to Chicago to the Chicago Paranormal Convention put on by Jack Chavez. Always a great event. Only $1 admission to that. We'll have more information as it gets closer. So that's what we got coming up here, guys. We also have a brand new coming out this weekend. We are premiering, not this weekend, next weekend. Next weekend we are premiering the trailer for the brand new Bigfoot in Wisconsin documentary that we will be releasing from Cryptids Anomalies of the Paranormal Society in May at our convention. So that's also going to be part of that. So on Saturday night, after the speakers and that all get done, we are going to be doing a screening for everybody that has a Saturday ticket. You can come out and check out the brand new Bigfoot documentary that we're putting out, and that will be in after the 1st of February. You can check out the trailer. So that'll be really cool. All right, guys. If you guys want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys, as I said today, we are live in studio. So if you have any questions or comments throughout the show, throw them in the comments section. My guest today is known as the American Haunt Historian. Alan Searcy is a prolific author specializing in haunted history and folklore throughout the United States. With over 20 books to his name, Searcy has become a prominent figure in the paranormal community. His series include Southern Ghost Stories and Graveyard Tales, and Fear and Folklore. He is also going to be a speaker at the Eau Claire event that I spoke of earlier. So please welcome to the show, Alan Searcy. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. It's great to have you here. I'm excited. You have, so many books. You have so many books out. You are very much a prolific writer and author. So I'm super excited to see where we're going to go today and all the stuff that you got going on, and as well as to meet you in person when you come up here as well. So it's going to be awesome. So where I listen to like some of the interviews and stuff that people come on my show before they go. And I always like to try and keep my show fresh and interesting, because I know from being on a lot of podcasts myself and stuff that you get tired of telling the same stories, right? So is there, right off the bat, is there something that you want to talk about that you don't get to talk about anymore? A book that doesn't get talked about or anything, or what drives you?
The paranormal, witch trials, grave robbing, galvanism, reviving bodies, electricity, dueling. I think that's fascinating. I've just got a lot of weird stuff. At my heart, I'm a historian. Mm-hmm. And just working on these books, you just find weird, wild stuff, and you go in these rabbit holes sometimes. And like the dueling, it's not really paranormal, but it kind of ties into it, I suppose. Andrew Jackson, it's a wild story here down in Tennessee that he was, before he was the president, and he was a general. He was a rising guy in the Tennessee militia, and he married this woman from Kentucky, Rachel Donaldson. Well, Rachel Donaldson was married in Kentucky, but she thought she got a divorce. But at the time, Kentucky is part of Virginia, so Virginia is breaking apart with Kentucky, and her petition got lost in the shuffle when the Kentucky became a Commonwealth. And she comes to Tennessee, meets Jackson. They go to Mississippi and get married. Well, turns out she's still married in Kentucky. So all this stuff, this bigamy, is just following Jackson as he climbs the ladder, right? So one day there's a horse race, or a potential horse race. He makes a bet with this guy, a prominent Nashvilleian. Hey, let's race, but hey, tell you what, if your horse doesn't show, you can pay me $800. So the guy's like, oh, sure, no problem. Well, his horse comes up lame and he's got to pay Jackson the money. The problem is at the time in 1806, the banks in Tennessee, you can't just go out and withdraw $800. That's like $20,000, $30,000. The banks don't have it. So the guy goes to Jackson, his hat in hand. Hey, let's work something out. Can I give you some promissory notes? Well, word gets around Nashville. Hey, this guy can't pay his debts. So it's like a pride thing. It's a class thing. Word gets around the tracks. No one wants to have a race with this guy because he can't pay his debts. The taverns are buzzing. The saloons are buzzing. Word's going around Nashville. Well, his son-in-law moves to town, Charles Dickinson, and he doesn't like this. He confronts Jackson. They think they squash it. Well, they're at the track, and Charles, the son-in-law, tells another one of Jackson's buddies, talking about how is Rachel, his wife, she's a married woman, just starts running her in the ground. So word gets to Jackson. The guy issues a letter. The guy who issued the challenge, the young man, his father, the guy who owned the horse, owned a newspaper. He puts a letter in the paper saying Colin Jackson a scoundrel and all these wild things. Well, they wind up dueling up in Kentucky. It's a legal duel in Tennessee, so Jackson has to go to Kentucky to do it. So they're on the carriage ride to Kentucky, and Jackson's talking to his second. When you had a duel, you had a second like assistant to make sure if you got shot, you got rushed to a doctor. So his assistant turns to him like, hey, this guy you're fighting, he's never lost a duel. He's like 13-0. And Jackson's like, oh, God, what have I got myself into? So they come up with this plan. So here, the guy's like, take my coat. I'm a bigger guy. My coat's going to be bigger on you. So if he tries to shoot, his aim's going to be off. It's a wider target than, Jackson's a tall, lanky man. So they can also go with this other strategy. We're going to let him shoot first. Maybe he gets in a hurry and misses. So it's kind of a wild strategy, but it's what he implemented. It's what he wanted to do. So he gets up there. They walk their paces. 3, 2, 1, fire. Jackson stands there. He doesn't draw his gun. Dickinson shoots. Hits Jackson, and Jackson doesn't sell it. So the guy's like, hang on, did I miss? Because he's 13-0. He's never lost a duel before. He's like, what we do? And his second's like, hey, man, he gets a shot. And Dickinson starts fidgeting. He was like, oh, my goodness, what's going to happen now? And Jackson pulls up his gun. 3, 2, 1, click. The gun, it misfires. It jams. So they're walking. What happens? And Jackson starts jamming with his gun, shoots him in cold blood and kills him. So they go back to Nashville. This is kind of the weird story. So the body of Charles Dickinson, the guy who challenged Jackson, they bury it in his father-in-law's plantation. Well, 100 years later, that's chopped up to a subdivision. So the state of Tennessee went out back in the 80s or 90s and spent all this money to try to find this guy's body. Turns out it's in the front yard of some subdivision, some house, just a regular street. So they dug it up and put it in the city cemetery. But I dug into that in one of my books, and it's a rabbit hole I just went down. It's a wild story because dueling, it's barbaric today, but back in the 1800s, it was a class thing. It's like if someone challenged your honor, you had to defend yourself.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I followed along. I'm a big fan of Hamilton the musical, and for anybody that's watched that, there's a lot of dueling going on in that. So
yeah, I've never seen the musical, but I know the story behind it. And the thing is, like Aaron Burr, I'm not sure if you know his story, but like he was trying to form his own country in the Southwest, which was still like uncharted territory. And the rumor was he was trying to acquire land and form his own country. He actually fled to Tennessee and was found in Franklin, which is outside of Nashville. Like a sheriff / bounty hunter found him and took him in and they tried him. He was found not guilty. But yeah, I know all about Aaron Burr and Hamilton.
That's a very Aaron Burr thing to do. Yeah.
He wasn't popular, and he's kind of a scoundrel. He had a lot of enemies. Yeah. But then again, he was a vice president, so he had some clout and he had some friends in high places.
Oh man, yeah, that's like that guy is just an interesting piece of work there. But I mean, like we talk about all the political upheaval and all the drama and stuff going on nowadays. But then you look back at all these older cases, going back to throughout history, they all were scoundrels and dirty.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're on Trump, they're on Biden. Like Andrew Jackson, his wife Rachel, those bigamy charges like just followed her. Like when he won the election, I think it was 1824, 1828. She had a heart attack and died. Like a week before the inauguration. She stayed in Tennessee and was buried in her inaugural dress she bought for the inauguration because there's just so much stress and just all this pressure on her, and her heart exploded and she never made it to Washington. And that's why Jackson he was so headstrong and did what he wanted to in Washington.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much.
In a history lesson, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. I love history. I think that's one of the things, like I've always been into cryptids and cryptozoology and stuff. And I've said it before. I always thought, that, it was out in the Pacific Northwest, or there was nothing around me. And I've definitely come to learn, like, as I said in the beginning, we have a whole documentary now on Bigfoot in Wisconsin, but I kind of moved over to paranormal in that time between. And we do all these paranormal investigations and stuff, and we do the documentaries. And the thing I love most is all the history that goes along with them. We got to go out to Gettysburg and just digging into all that stuff and learning, being there and learning about everything that happened and a lot of the other places. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, and like the cryptid thing, I've got a cryptid book, Fear and Folklore American Monsters. I've got a sequel coming out later this year too, because I read old newspapers all day long. That's where I find some of the material, and that's where I kind of dig in. Like another story, like I found this story in Florida. I've got a Florida book. There was this guy, I can't remember his name. He was like it was 19th century, mid 19th century. He was early 20th century. He was a shipboat captain. He was a big fisherman. And like when people came to Florida, like presidents or dignitaries, they hired him to go out fishing. Well, one day, there were sightings of this sea serpent out there in the water. So he decides to go after it. Well, he gets out there and he gets it on the line. He's got a harpoon and like he's trying to catch it. Well, his crew like try to form a mutiny. After like a day or two, they're tired of being out there on the ocean with no food, no water. Like he pulls a gun on. It's like, no, we're going to catch this thing and you're going to help me. Like he literally had like a gun to them to keep them there from overthrowing him as the captain. So after a couple of days, he finally reels this thing in with the help of another boat that comes out to help him. And it's a 40-foot whale shark. Back in in 1920 and 30, where it was, no one knows what a whale shark is. It's a sea monster. So he takes this thing out. There's pictures. I have it in my book. Like he took this thing out and he took it to a taxidermist and like gutted it. And he built this frame to put inside the fish and toured it around, make a fortune showing off this sea monster he caught. I think someone in New Jersey bought it. And the thing is, he took their money, but they never sent it to them. And they started calling it the Big Stink because it's a rotting fish out in the sun, right? But yeah, he toured Florida. I think he went to New Orleans, Atlanta, but he made a fortune. I think he charged $0.25 to show it, which is, a few bucks in our time. But yeah, it's wild. Stuff like that's what I find.
That's awesome. Yeah, those are really cool animals. I got to go down to Atlanta, Georgia, to the aquarium down there and see them in person. And they're really amazing things. So, very cool, man. Well, I want to talk about your new book that you got coming out, because that one's really cool. But before we get to that, just kind of real briefly, we've talked about Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee and stuff. Where are some of your other books from for people to get a kind of idea if they have questions or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in Nashville, right outside of Nashville. And I wrote a book called Ghost of Gallatin back, 2018. And I did Franklin, Murfreesboro. I've got 12 or 13 Tennessee books alone just because it's my backyard. And Tennessee's a weird spot because they were occupied during the war, slavery, Native Americans, a lot of weird, bad stuff here. Civil War, especially. We were occupied. There were battles all over Tennessee. But there's a lot of stuff to draw, history and paranormal from. Was it 2019, 2020? I went up to Louisville, Kentucky. And I did a book up there, and I was in Philadelphia for work a few summers in a row. So there's so much history in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. I was in a building. This guy was telling me, "Oh yeah, George Washington celebrated his anniversary here with his wife." It's like, man, I'll walk the same floor George Washington walked. It's really cool. But I got a Philadelphia book. Anywhere from like New York to New Orleans, I've got it. I mean, New York City. I've done a New Jersey book, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Alabama, Florida. I believe something out. I know Kentucky. Yeah, if I find stuff, man, I travel a lot, which is, fun.
Awesome.
Very Chicago, cool. That's probably the closest to you. Chicago, St. Louis. The Midwest, man, a lot of fun stories in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. So if you guys have any questions about any of those places, throw them in the comments and we'll get to them. But your newest book coming out, you said in April, Southern Ghost Stories, Savannah. Now, is this Savannah, Georgia?
Yeah, it's my wife and I got married, and it was like her bucket list. She wanted to go to Savannah, Georgia. And I didn't really care. I just wanted to go to the beach. But she's like, no, we have to go down there. I want to take a ghost tour. It's going to be fun. So I went down there kicking and screaming. And I'd never been on a ghost tour. I'm sure you have before, right? Mm-hmm. So we got down there, and I fell in love with it, like the correlation between the history and hauntings, how it all just kind of jives and just works together. And we went back like a year later or 6 months later, whenever it was, and we took another ghost tour. But this time she didn't really like it. They went to like 4 places. They charged us $50. It's kind of a ripoff. They're just, trying to prey on the tourists down there. So my wife was mad, and she said, someone should make an app for $2 is all the haunted places in it. And that's a great idea. She's like, you should do it. And I was like, I don't know how to make an app. Just figure it out. So that summer I bought a Mac and I taught myself the code. I watch YouTube videos and just tinker with it. And it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like there's one day I spent like 15 hours on it. Like there was one semicolon in the wrong spot and the whole stupid thing wouldn't work. I was pulling my hair out. But anyway, so I made a Savannah app. It's called the Savannah Ghost Map app. And I made a Nashville app because that's where I live. I had the template. Since I had the template, I went to New Orleans, St. Augustine, several haunted cities, Boston, Salem. I made one for them. Well, I had it for a few years. And the thing with Apple and Google, they're very particular. They want you to update it constantly. And I got aggravated with it. And when I started doing the books, I just kind of let it fade away. But Savannah had all this material from the app. And I've been down there a handful of times. Like, I'll do a Savannah book because I love Savannah. That's kind of what got me started. And if you're not familiar with Savannah, Georgia, it's where they fought part of the Revolution there. Georgia was a colony. All those big picturesque, beautiful squares are mass graves. And there's so many wild stories and old houses and just a lot of history, beautiful cemeteries. But yeah, Savannah, Georgia, it's a great place to visit. And yeah.
It definitely is. Growing up, like I used to watch, like before I got into major, like doing the ghost hunts and stuff like that, I would watch like Ghost Hunters and shows like that. And for whatever reason, Savannah, Georgia always stuck in my head as like one of the most haunted locations in the country.
Yeah.
So I haven't been there yet, actually, for all the places that I have gone and stuff. But it's always fascinated me. Like I've heard so much like interesting things from there that it was so haunted. So
well,
what's your favorite story?
Well, I mean, I had experience there. The first time we went, there's a place called the Sorrell Wheat House. It's a historic house belonging to Francis Sorrell. He was he owned a cotton factor. He sold cotton. Well, anyway, the story goes he had a slave named Molly that he was having an affair with, and his wife supposedly found out about it, then jumped to her death off the second or third floor balcony. Well, the story goes, once that happened, Francis went and he hanged Molly in her slave quarters in the carriage house or whatever. So my wife and I went down there, and they're telling the story. Well, we got down there before the tour started. They said, hey, you guys, you're 30 minutes early. You can go walk around, take pictures. So we went to Molly's room on the second floor where he supposedly killed her, and I had my phone out. And I'm taking videos. I said, hey, is there anybody that wants to communicate with us or something to that effect? All of a sudden, my phone just freezes. Like there's these little squiggly lines. And I've had an iPhone for a while, and that's never happened before. And then I've had one ever since, and it's never happened. But I was up there trying to communicate with whatever was there, and my phone just froze and locked. So that was really cool. Just having an experience. It was broad daylight, too.
Interesting. Yeah, technology and the paranormal definitely don't go well together.
I mean, one of the best stuff I've ever captured is just with an iPhone. There's a place called Rosemont in Gallatin, Tennessee. And I was working on the book, and I had my recorder out talking to the director. I was recording our conversation, getting notes for the book. And I go to leave, and we're standing on the front porch. And I mentioned that I had a little boy 2 weeks earlier. Well, we're talking to the director, and he mentions that his mother's maiden name is Cersei. Turns out we're distant cousins. I tell him about my child, my newborn little boy. And I get back home, and at night I'm listening to a recording, and I say, yeah, I had a little boy. And there's a woman's voice that goes, oh, good. It's like it sent shivers down my spine. I sent to him. It's like, oh, that's Catherine Gill, the judge's wife. So, and there's been all kinds of weird things that happened in that house. And I was in St. Augustine. That kind of ties into my Florida book. I was taking a tour there, and it was just me. It wasn't my wife. It was just me. It was by myself. And I was the last tour of the day. So I go to pay for my tour ticket. I get it, and they said, here's your ticket. You can meet over there. I look at my receipt, charged me twice. They thought I was with somebody. I went back, hey, it's just me. They said, well, your last tour day. Sorry, your ticket office just closed. I can't give a refund. Call this number tomorrow. So I wrote the number down on my notepad. And the guy said, hey, come on, we're starting. So I run over there, take the tour. And the whole time I have my phone out, my notepad, not even knowing it. I get to the end of the tour, pull up my phone to see if I got the right number. There's a bunch of poorly misspelled curse words in my notepad on my iPhone. And I showed the guys, like, look, man, this is weird. And you think it's like some of the old inmates here just messing with me? He said, man, a lot of weird things happen here, but I've never seen something like this. So that was really cool. And you just don't know, man. Anytime I go somewhere, I always have your phone out. And I've got pictures, videos, and yeah, iPhones are great on ghost hunts. Even if, you can be like just amateur investigator. An iPhone, man, you capture some really good stuff.
I have heard some people use their phone, the notepads and stuff like that for text to speech. and they'll carry it around for like EVPs, and have gotten like things show up on it that people have, said that has been captured on them. So I actually haven't tried it myself yet, but I've heard people have results with it. So
there's an app called the Ghost Radar Legacy, and I bought it. It's like $2 or $3, whatever it was. I thought it was just something kind of silly. So I was in this place on the Gallatin Square where weird things have happened, and I'm walking to the back of the room. And I'm showing the owner. We're about to walk up the stairs, and there's an older lady shopping, and she dropped something. At that exact moment, the word "dropped" appeared on my phone in that Ghost Radar Legacy app. So I showed the owner. She got real tickled. She downloaded it. The next day, she goes upstairs, and she's working before the store opens, and she gets 2 words, 2 names. It was like James and Carter, I think, were the names. Carter was definitely one of them. So she goes back downstairs. They open the store. FedEx pulls up the delivery of the day. The guy says James on his name tag. She gets tickled. All the girls are working. They laughed. Well, a little bit later, Amazon pulls up their delivery for the day. So the girls go, "Oh, let me guess, your name's Carter, right?" And the guy said, "Yes, ma'am. How'd you know?" "Show me your driver's license." He pulls out his license. His name was Carter. But the weird thing about it was, she's at 117 North Water. His package was from 117 South Water. He should never even been there at her location that day. So after that, she called me. She's like, "You need to delete that app. You got the devil in there. Everything's awful. You shouldn't even mess with that kind of stuff." So it's really what you have phones, man. You just don't know.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, you don't know. There's so much stuff out there that just happens.
Here, I was in Franklin, Tennessee at a Clouston Hall. It's a historic townhouse that was a Civil War hospital. And this was right after that happened. I was showing my buddy the app and telling him the story. And we walked to the house. It was a Civil War hospital. And the word "operation" appeared on my phone. So, yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. I'm always leery about like phone apps, like they have the spirit boxes and stuff on there. Yeah. But as you know, like your phone does so much stuff. Like it listens to you constantly. It knows your GPS location, and I'm very leery about any of those. I don't believe in a lot of them. But like as you said with those names, there's no way that it could have, gotten that information off of GPS or something to predict the delivery drivers for the day. So there's
I got a buddy of mine. He said, "Oh, somebody in China just pressing buttons. That's how it works."
Yeah. Yep. Interesting, man. Well, let me ask you this. You're down in Kentucky, Tennessee area, and one of the places that I've always wanted to investigate was the Nashville Zoo.
Oh yeah, the Croft House.
Yeah. Have you gotten any stories there? Is there any like ghost stuff going on?
Well, I have 4 books on Nashville. I first started doing it at 700 pages, and that's like a Bible. It's intimidating to read a book that thick. So I broke it up, and I did downtown Nashville, South Nashville, West Nashville, and Opryland, the haunted theme park. Excuse me. I'm still working on North and East. Well, South Nashville is where the Croft House is. It's now it belonged to these 2 ladies. They're very wealthy. When they got older, they had problems paying their taxes, so they made a deal with the government. "Hey, you don't make us pay taxes. We'll give you this land when we pass away." So they lived there until they died, and then it became the area they knew up for the Nashville Zoo. But their house that was built like before the Civil War is still there, the Croft House. But the thing is, you're not allowed to do investigations. The word there is it's not haunted. That's the message they want to send out, because they don't want people in there poking around and trying to do stuff. But you talk to these people who work there. A lady told me she went in one day and she played the piano. She set her hat down, and while she's playing the piano, the hat disappeared. And they found it like 2 days later somewhere else in the house. So there's something there, and I've heard stories. People have claimed to gotten images in the window. I think I got something in the window a few years ago. But yeah, the Croft House, but you can't go in there and investigate. But you can they give free tours. Mm-hmm. And like if you're in there in the summertime and it's 90 degrees and the Croft House is air conditioned, I always go in the Croft House.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of years ago, we were working on a haunted zoo episode, and it never came to fruition because this was right at the end of the COVID, and we couldn't get into Lincoln Park Zoo because they were doing renovations on the building that is haunted. And the Nashville Zoo said that they didn't want nothing to do with it. But I've always been interested in that, and I wrote to them and tried to get in there. But yeah, so.
And it's weird, like because we're in the Bible Belt here in Nashville, and it's kind of a weird gray area, with church-going people. Mm-hmm. I'm a believer, but I still think there's something going on. But a lot of places won't, like the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson's home. They won't talk about it. Halloween, people telling weird stories. They won't come out and say the house is haunted. But in 2020, a lot of these historic sites kind of did an about face because they're about to shut down. So how do you bring in money? You embrace the paranormal. I know a place in Franklin, Tennessee, a historic site that was about to close their doors. Started doing ghost hunts, ghost tours. Brings in thousands of dollars. It saved them. At Rosemont here in Gallatin, they also were having a hard time. They started embracing the paranormal. So it's it's a tricky thing here in the South, but a lot of people are embracing it. Some still are not. There's a place in South Nashville. I live right behind it, Little Rocky at the house. It's called Traveler's Rest. It was home of Judge John Overton. In the 1300s, it was an Indian village. Well, Judge John Overton comes in. He digs up Indian graves to build his big mansion. So that's just some bad stuff from the jump. Well, I moved into a house right behind it in '05. My first night I was there, a trash can moved 8 feet in the middle of the night. Weird things happened. Someone said they saw a lady in my bedroom. Just it was nothing was malevolent. I would come home from work and all the TVs would be on in the house, or 3 TVs, yeah, all be on. I had a light in the den. I would turn it off at night. In the morning, it would be on. I had to eventually unplug it and put it away. So yeah, but when I hopped the fence one day and went over to talk to them, I said, "Look, I live right over here where things are happening. Are there any ghost stories? What's going on?" "Oh no, we're not haunted. That stuff. It's not real. Is whatever." So I went to leave, and a lady got out of her car wearing a period attire. She's a volunteer. I said, "Ma'am, I live right over here. Things are happening." "Oh, honey, there's so many ghost stories here, but I can't tell you about them." So just some places will do it, some people won't.
We have the Hearthstone in Appleton, right? City of here. I grew up right down the road from it, and the Hearthstone is the first house in the country, I believe, to have hydroelectric power, like the first light bulb and stuff like that. So it's a historical house and they do ghost tours. So they take you around, tell you all these stories, like you said, but they're not haunted.
Yeah.
And we've talked to them. We're like, "Oh, you do the ghost tours and stuff like that. Are you interested? Have you had anything happen?" No, we haven't had anything. Then why do you do ghost tours?
Yeah, it's funny doing these books. I talk to a lot of people. I go in these places. "Oh, we're not haunted," but I just always tickles me. They tell me a crazy ghost story.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we have one question here. Lee's question for anybody from the South here. Have you ever heard of Old Green Eyes?
I have. I've never been to Chickamauga. I've driven. It's down there, like Chattanooga, Georgia area. I've driven past it. I've never been. I've heard there's some kind of cryptid or something they see at night, but I really haven't dug into it because I haven't been to the battlefield. But yeah, it's in another history divergent here. Like Nashville, once Fort Donelson, Fort Henry fell, kind of on the Kentucky line, that the Union marched into Nashville, took Nashville, spread out, and occupied Gallatin, Murfreesboro, Franklin, Springfield, all these waterways and railroads. They locked them down because they were trying to get to Chattanooga and then to Georgia, then on to the Carolinas, which they eventually did. So like Chattanooga is I got a Chattanooga book. There's all kinds of fighting there, Civil War. The Reed House, have you heard about it?
Mm.
There's a historic. It was a hotel. It was a Civil War hospital. It got torn down. They built the Reed House, I think in the 1920s. Big, opulent, beautiful hotel. Well, there's a lady in the 1950s named Annalisa Netherly. She stayed in room 311. And back then, hotels were people. It weren't really just like one night only. You rented hotels. You stayed for a week, months sometimes. Well, she was there with a boyfriend, and her boyfriend murdered her in the room. So many things have happened. They've sealed the room off. Excuse me. You can't you can't stay in the room. Well, a couple of years ago, they said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. In October, we'll rent the room for $666. Halloween night, it's $9.99 to rent it." So there are people who've paid the money, and like Annalisa is there, but she doesn't bother women. She only takes her rage out on men. Like men have been like thrown to the floor and choked, they've been scratched. She only attacks men. Like if you want to look into it, I wrote about it in my Chattanooga book. But yeah, she attacks men. It's wild, and you only stay in there in the month of October.
Seems like a very common theme for paranormal, like the women that attack the men or the men that attack the women. You never hear like, I don't know, the other, like just women don't like women or something. Like you talked earlier about the story about the mistress, and she jumped over the barricade to kill herself, the wife. Now, why isn't that wife like haunting women? Like does she just attack young women that come there out of jealousy or something like that? And
I don't know, man. Well, the house was also they treated folks. Was it the Civil War? It was also a hospital one time. So who knows who's there or what's there? But yeah, and the thing is, like, I can count on maybe one hand number of malevolent things I've ever encountered. It's all just mischievous, silly stuff most of the time. It's kind of like a common thing. Like you're like, "Oh, the ghosts," it's like they're just kind of there, and they just want to mess with you sometimes. It's nothing mean, or rarely ever mean.
So I have a question here. You have, you spoke about how you went to Savannah, Georgia because your wife wanted to take these ghost tours and you weren't really interested in it.
Right.
So now you've written all these 20 books, about paranormal and stuff. So did you change your mind, or were you interested and just not interested in the ghost tours, or where did that happen there?
It was the history, like the correlation with history and hauntings. Like in my books, I try to explain why things are haunted. I don't just say, "Oh, this happens over here. You know, here are footsteps and seeing things." No, I tell you why they see things. That's the cause and effect. I like to know why things are haunted. That's kind of what did it for me in Savannah. The history, the hauntings, it works together. That's what I enjoy now.
Oh,
At my heart, like I'm a historian. I mean, I was doing a tour. I do tours in Gallatin and various cities in Middle Tennessee. And someone one night asked me, what are you? What's your job title? I'm like, well, I guess I'm really a historian. They said, no, you're a haunt historian. I said, I'm gonna steal that. I made business cards say haunt historian.
That's awesome. Like I said, I never really was interested in Gettysburg. We went there for another member on our team wanted to go there and investigate. So we set it up and all that. And I got there and was just hit by just the whole history. Like the whole city felt different and the whole experience. And it just was an absolutely fascinating. And now it's actually one of my favorite episodes that we've done, my favorite investigations. So
the Civil War, man, is so interesting and it's so complex. It's not just black and white like you read in history books. Like I think it was Shiloh, the Confederate general Albert Sidney Johnston was killed. And the wild thing about it was like the Union generals were more upset than his own men because they served together in Mexico. All the guys fighting were buddies. It's just, yeah, the Civil War, man, is so fascinating. And being in Tennessee, you learn so much. You kind of see different things, and it's not black and white, like I said.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on here back to your last book that just came out, because this is another topic I find absolutely fascinating. Fear and Folklore Grave Robbers. And that is, oh my gosh. So we got a chance to do some work down in Chicago area. And as you know, like the whole Lincoln Park area is synonymous with this stuff. So I know quite a bit about that in particular, but let's talk about some other cases and around the country and stuff of grave robbers.
When you said I went to Chicago, got a chance to do some, I thought you were going to say grave robbing. I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, man, it's, and I never expected to fall down this rabbit hole, but like I did my books in the Midwest, and a common thing I kept seeing was these grave robbers, and it was just so prevalent. It was kind of like they operated in the shadows, but it was like a necessity. They had to have them. Like in 1880, you can make $20 a week working as a dock laborer in Cincinnati, Nashville, Louisville, St. Louis, Chicago, or you make $40 in one night stealing one cadaver and selling to the college. It's the wildest thing. And because there's so much money to be made, $40 in 1880 is like $1,000, $1,200 in our money today. Like if you get 2 or 3 bodies, your month's made. So these guys are just, the shenanigans are off the charts, and everybody's trying to figure out a way to get these bodies. The medical colleges, like I think in Cincinnati had 9 at one point. They had to have a steady stream of cadavers for the students to dissect, or the schools had to shut down. So it's supply and demand. The way the system worked out was the county, if you died in a hospital or jail and no one claimed your body in 36 hours, you were deemed a burden to the county, and they collected your body and divided you up at the end of the month or end of the week, whatever, with all the colleges. So if you're getting 1 or 2 a week and you got 300 kids, it's a problem. So they're hiring people to raid the graveyards at night. There's a story about a guy that called him Old Man Dead, William Cunningham. I actually wrote a screenplay based off his life. It's nuts. He's out raiding the graveyards one night, and he gets his cadaver. It's too tall. It won't fit in the back of his wagon, so he puts it in the passenger seat of his wagon. So he leaves the graveyard. He's riding down the street. Halt, who goes there? Another wagon pulls up. It's a watchman. He's like, oh, man. So he's like, I'm Cunningham, sir. Who are you? I'm so-and-so. I'm the night watchman. He said, well, who's that? Oh, it's my cousin Jimmy. Sir, we were at a wedding. He had too much whiskey. I'm going to get him home safely, sir. I promise. He's a good Christian, God-fearing man. He just had too much to drink. I'm going to take care of him, sir. Okay, well, y'all get on home. It's dangerous out here. The grave robber's got 2 bodies last night. Yes, sir. I'll get him on home. So he gets his buggy going again, hits a rock, and the cadaver stumbles out, and the watchman turns around. Cunningham, get in my wagon. We're going downtown. It's just, it's wild stuff like that. Have you heard about the Harrison horror in Cincinnati?
No.
Are you familiar with Benjamin Harrison, the president? You heard the name?
Yeah.
All right, so William Henry Harrison was our 7th president. His son was John Scott Harrison. He was a congressman. Benjamin Harrison, during the Civil War, he was a Union general. After the war, he chose not to go back to Cincinnati or North Bend, where his family was from, right outside town, because he wanted to become his own man. He wanted to form his own law practice, kind of get out of his grandfather and his father's shadow. Goes to Indianapolis. He becomes a very successful lawyer. 1878, he gets a telegram, hey, your father's passed away. So he goes back home to North Bend to bury his father with his siblings. So they're walking around the cemetery after the service, and his sister starts screaming. Well, her son, or her nephew by marriage, Augustus, who died the week before from tuberculosis, his grave has been disturbed. His body's gone. She's freaking out. Benjamin's furious because, he's a major guy. Their family's very prominent. It should not be happening in their family burial ground. So, unfortunately, Benjamin's got to go back to Indianapolis to give a speech. He's a rising star in the GOP, future president. He tells his cousin George and his younger brother Johnny, go to Cincinnati and you find our nephew. So George and Johnny go to Cincinnati the very next day. They hire a sheriff to be their liaison to kind of squeak the wheel or grease the wheels, kind of figure out what's what. So late that night, they go to the top of the Ohio Medical College by the river. They're poking around. They have, candles, oil lamps, and there's no electricity. The sheriff walks over to the corner of the top floor. There's a shaft, boys, come here. Walk over to the shaft. Oh, there's a rope in the shaft. Oh, the line's taut. And slowly in the dark, this shadowy form materializes from the shaft. So the sheriff, he's like, come here, Johnny, is this your nephew? Johnny walks over and he pulls up the shawl, holds his candle up. No, it's some old bald man. Well, hang on a second. It's dark. Let's get him out. Sheriff picks him up, lays him on the ground. Come here, take my old lamp, get a better look. Takes the old lamp, puts it by the guy's face, pulls the shawl back. It's his dad. The grave robbers beat him in Cincinnati in 24 hours. The grave robbers got his nephew and his father in like 2 days. So after that, word gets to Benjamin Harrison. It's scorched earth. He comes into town, but the problem is the medical college administrators don't want to give up the grave robbers because they flip on them. They won't get any bodies for the students, so have to close. So it's cat and mouse. Benjamin's trying to get the police involved, and they're trying to figure out what's what, but they don't want to buck the college the administrators because they all work together. It's wild. So anyway, a month before in Toledo, Ohio, there was a guy named Thomas Beach. He was using an alias. He got popped right in the graveyards. Well, he gets caught right in the graveyards. They throw him into the jail. So a couple of days later, he goes to the jailer. Hey, I've got smallpox. Look at my hands. You got to get me out of here. So back then, smallpox is a death sentence, not for you, but for everybody in the building. So they take Thomas and throw him into the pest house. Well, the next day, he's gone. He slips out. He's the guy that took the body, but they never can catch him. You know why they can't catch him? He's a British spy. 1862, young man Thomas Beach in England, sense of adventure. He wants to travel the world. He wants to fight. He comes to the United States and enlists in the Illinois infantry. He fought, and while a weird thing happened during the Civil War. Have you seen Gangs of New York, the DiCaprio movie? Well, the conscription riots were a thing. The war was very unpopular up north, and had it gone another year, Lincoln was ready to make concessions to work something out. The way it was set up was the Union had numbers, they had all these young men to fight, but they had to draft them. Well, people were getting tired of sending their kids to die in the South. They had riots. The Gangs of New York shows them in the movie. Well, to kind of get around that, they made this rule. Okay, well, if you have wealth, you can pay someone $30 to come take your child's place. A lot of Irish immigrants took that deal. So Thomas Beach, young man from England, gets embedded with a lot of guys from Ireland. Both foreigners kind of sync up and they become buddies. Well, after the war's over, Thomas goes to Illinois. He becomes a pharmacist. He studies medicine, realizes more money in raiding the graveyards than actually helping people. So his buddies from Ireland, though, they get a wild hair and they go to Canada, start launching raids in Canada, because at the time Canada was a British province or a British territory. So they're telling Thomas what's going on. They stay in communication. He writes letters to his father. His father takes him to Parliament. So Thomas Beach becomes a protected British asset. He's raiding the graveyards at night. So once he gets turned up for the Harrison deal, he goes back home. He goes back home and writes like a best-selling autobiography about his life. But over here, he's a scourge of the earth. He stole the body of the father and son of the United States president. It's the wildest damn thing I've ever researched and studied. I actually made a screenplay about that too, because I'm writing this book and it's like a loop-de-loop, and you think you're done. It's a roller coaster, but no, there's one more way back over here, and then you're done. It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I think when you think of grave robbers and stuff, you don't think about the medical side of that. And that's what's interesting is, you always hear about the people the tomb raiders and stuff going in to steal the jewels or the wealth or whatever, but you don't know that they were literally just taking the bodies.
Yeah, they were doing it. It kind of came out of fashion in the 20s and 30s. People started donating their bodies to science. But Andrew Jackson, someone tried to steal his body. There was a collector who collected bones of famous people, paid this guy a bunch of money. He blew up part of the crypt, couldn't get in there. Abraham Lincoln, someone broke into his tomb. And also they found, once they got in there, the concrete's too thick, and there was a Secret Service agent kind of embedded with them, following them. They kind of broke it up. But yeah, it's wild, the stuff that happened back then.
Wow. There's so much stuff interesting. I used to do like haunted house, so like Halloween haunted house. I used to own hearses and all this stuff, so I'm very familiar. I've actually dug a grave in a cemetery. I actually dug 3 of them, not to dig them up, but to dig them fresh. So I've had all this experience with this, and I just find the whole like legends and lore around cemeteries and stuff is absolutely fascinating. Like the church grims. Are you familiar with those?
Oh yeah, like over in Paris and stuff.
Yeah. I find that whole story of, like the first person to be buried in a cemetery has to ferry the souls across or help them. So they would bury these dogs in cemeteries as the first being to be buried there to kind of protect the graveyard and ferry the souls across. And I've always found that story very fascinating, because there's so many stories of like these black dogs that people see in cemeteries.
Well, last spring I was in Montgomery, Alabama. I found a story where there was a guy a wealthy man was buried in Montgomery, like in 1800 something. He was the wealthiest man in the county, and they thought that he buried a treasure map, or a map to his treasure, on his person when he was put in the ground. So people started, trying to dig him up, and they find him in weird spots, stuff like that. Well, so I went down there because I had the story I'd done for the Alabama book, and I'm walking around the cemetery, just getting pictures of the cemetery. I look down at my feet, and there's a busted open grave. Like it's like a big slab of concrete that someone busted in. Like you see like another marker someone picked up and dropped that broke into it. And in my opinion, I think what happened was someone got cold and they were looking for a place to sleep. But you look a little closer down there, and it's in my Alabama book. There's a jawbone from like whenever the guy was buried. It's nuts. Like I don't think the guy was trying to rob the grave, but it's wild to look down at your feet and see graves been busted open in 2024.
Wow. We went down to Lynch County, Kentucky, to do some research on that. We actually went down and filmed at Portal 31, the coal mine down there. And we got to take a little tour with some of the locals down there, like some of the cemeteries. And they were showing us these graves they had big cement slabs over the top of them and chains. And they had said that the legend is that there was like either a witch or werewolves that were buried in these cemeteries, and they had these chains and stuff over the graves to kind of keep them in and stop them from rising or coming back. So that was super interesting. Have you dealt with any of that kind of stuff?
I mean, I've seen graves that have like the gates or like I guess like a gate over them, so they couldn't crawl out. I've seen those, but as far as like really digging in, I haven't done a whole lot on people like werewolves or witches being buried. Usually the witches, like the witch trials in Salem, or I've got a book, Fear and Folklore American Witches. Like the witch trials, like they had witch trials in South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Pennsylvania. It wasn't just Salem. In fact, Salem, the template came from Boston a few months earlier. Salem had a witch trial in 1820 something. They tried this guy who was he was just a different kind of religious guy than the normal people, and they tried to bring him up on charges as well. But yeah, in Salem, they usually just buried them right there under the tree where they hanged them. And the family, or they left them, and the family could come claim them. So yeah, that's just my barrel story about witches.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, now there's so much with that as well, like the witch trials and all that. And there was actually werewolf trials over in Europe going on as well, that people were tried as werewolves because they thought that they were werewolves. It's crazy history. Like the more you dig into it, the more, like you said, there's these little wormholes and stuff you get to go down, and
yeah,
all the stuff that goes on.
Well, like the Rougarou in Louisiana, they say it's something from France, where there was a guy like in the 1600s or whatever who was attacking people on the what's like, I guess the pass with the carriages. The name escapes me, but he was attacking them, and he was found, and like some guys got bitten, and they found him in a field naked, and he had blood all over his mouth, and they said he was a werewolf. That's right. I think the origin of the Rougarou started.
Interesting. I have not heard that story. I've heard of the Rougarou and that, but yeah. Absolutely. We are coming up here on the end of the show. We got about 10 minutes left here. So if you guys have any questions, now's the time. Get them in the comments section for our guest here. Written several books, well over 20 books out in all kinds of areas of the East Coast, from Tennessee, Kentucky, New York, Pennsylvania, Georgia, everywhere over there. So if you guys have any questions, Lee says, Scottish lore, the last person buried is the protector of the cemetery. Well, that would suck. every couple weeks you have a new protector or something. That's weird.
Until they close the cemetery, you're just stuck guarding it.
You're just stuck. Yeah. Interesting. Very cool, man. So you're going to be at the Meta Para. I never can remember the name. Meta Para promotion.
Paranormal.
Yeah, that thing over in Eau Claire. So people are going to be there. Are you going to have books and stuff to sell?
Yep, I have books. Yeah, come talk to me. I'll be happy. Yeah, just talk. And I think I'm doing a presentation on something. I'm not sure what yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
I think you have two presentations actually. I think you're speaking 2 days. So
That's fine.
I'm not sure. Yeah, they keep changing it. So, but it's definitely going to be.
I can talk about anything, man. I've got so much material. It's easy for me to just to get up here and just talk.
Very cool, man. Yeah, that's Midwest Meta Paracon. There we go. It is going to be in Eau Claire, Wisconsin at the event there, April 11th through the 13th. And each of us has different promo codes that you can get discount tickets. You get 10% off your your admission. Mine changed. It was Caps MMPC, and now it's Barnaby MMPC. I think yours is Allen MMPC. Is that correct?
I think so. Sounds right.
Yeah, it's really cool. They're giving us little kickbacks and stuff if depending on who purchases tickets with each of our codes. So,
Yeah, it's not fair, man. I'm not Wisconsin, Tennessee. I'm not sure my folks are going to follow me up there. I'm still trying to promote as best I can, but Wisconsin's a long drive from down here in Tennessee where I am.
Eau Claire's a long drive from where I am, and it's in Wisconsin. It's 4 hours to get there from me. So I don't know how that works out. It's only 3 hours it's only about 2 hours to the bottom of the state for me, and an hour and a half to the top, yet it's 4 hours to the other side. So
I'm looking forward to it. I've never been to Wisconsin, and I've got a few Wisconsin stories I've kind of dug into, but yeah, I'm looking forward to going up there and just meet people and just having a good time.
Awesome. Terry and Metapara Promotions and stuff, they put on a great event. It's going to be great. I did their one in Eau Claire a couple of years ago as well, and it'll be a fantastic time. There's a lot of great other people and stuff, and there's going to be more of them going to be on my show here for people that are interested coming up. So you guys get to look forward to that. But what what other books do you have out? Where can people get them, and where can people find you?
Barnes and Noble carries different every store is different, so I don't want to tell you to go there. Amazon's probably the best place to go. I mean, it's different bookstores carry different titles, but Amazon's pretty you can find everything on there.
Very cool. Awesome. Do you have any other events coming up that you want to talk about?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I'll be busy once the weather turns here. I mean, it's not bad. It's bad in Tennessee, but I'm sure it's worse in Wisconsin. But yeah, I'll CreepyCon. I'll be at that. I think it's a summer. It's in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'll be Smoky Mountain Terror. It's also, I think, in the summertime. I always do Scarefest in Lexington, Kentucky, and I got a few other things lined up. I can't remember where they are off the top of my head. But yeah, mostly just in the southeast. But I'm looking forward to getting up north. It's really exciting.
It is. Hopefully, it'll be warmer by April coming up.
That Chicago Paranormal. I need to look into that.
Yeah, definitely. Jack Chavez. I can send you a link to him as well. I'm sure he would be absolutely interested in having you. So I will get you that information. Yeah, it's a great time up here. Like I said, the first time that I did the Eau Claire event, it was this massive snowstorm over there, and literally right outside of Eau Claire, it stopped. So the whole way there, I was in this massive snowstorm and stuff. I have a trailer that I pull with me, and there was snow inside the trailer. It was snowing so hard. So definitely looking forward to this event as well. So, but it's going to be a good time. What's going back to the grave robbers and stuff? What else is going on down like St. Louis? Like, I love that area as well.
There's a vampire story in St. Louis. There's a lady. She was Elizabeth Munn was her name. She was a Swiss immigrant. And the thing was, she had this ailment where she just had like her heart, like a regular heartbeat or whatever. So she went to see this physician, and he said, look, the only way to cure yourself is to drink blood from a dying man. So she would go to the jail, like every time there was a public execution, and beg for the blood of the man they hanged. And she was so persistent that they actually changed around the days of execution to keep her at bay because she was such a problem and so persistent. I think she died shortly after because she didn't get the blood she needed.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. Like, so back up. So why did she have to drink blood?
That's what her doctor told her she had to do. I mean, you got to think it was like 1830s.
Oh yeah.
It was. It's all they were treating George Washington with leeches. You know, it's like doctors don't know what they're doing. They're trying to figure it all out. Like, oh yeah, to cure your heart condition, a regular heartbeat, you need blood from a dying man. His blood will set your heart straight, and that's just what she believed, and it's what she tried to do.
Like you've said it 100 times. History is amazing. There's so much. Like kind of like bathing in blood was supposed to like keep you young and youthful and stuff. You hear that a lot as well, and I kind of feel like that kind of goes along with that story of drinking it versus bathing in it. So, interesting. Well, guys, if we don't have any other questions, I guess we're good to go, man. I mean, like it's been absolutely fascinating. You tell such amazing stories with such prolificancy. We've gotten through so much stuff here. It's like I don't know where else to go. We've covered so much stuff.
Let's do it again. I'll come back and we'll just BS and talk some more.
Absolutely, man. It's been fascinating. I mean, like there's so many stories, so much history in that, and I love hearing about it. And you're absolutely a wealth of knowledge to know all that stuff off the top of your head, like the dates and everything. Like most people are like, I gotta check my book. It was back in the 1800s or something. But you were on the ball here, man.
I did a show. I went to Lexington. I was on a TV show in Kentucky, and this guy asked me this question. And I started talking about this witch trial in Tennessee for some reason. So sometimes it just kind of does run together, but yeah, it's hard to keep it all straight sometimes.
Oh, you're amazing. Like to be honest, like that was really good. Like I said, we've covered so much that I try and plan and have everything everything I want to talk about, and we did, and then some, and it's been awesome, man. Thank you so much.
We never got about Frankenstein reviving bodies with electricity. I will come back and do it again.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
Oh man. So back when Mary Shelley published Frankenstein, is 1813, all these doctors and scientists thought, oh, I can do it too. So in Europe and America, all these people are trying to revive bodies with electricity. So in America, especially the Southeast, they would try to find somebody who's going to be hanged. They give them some silver, they could eat good while they're in prison. So they would they take their body and try to revive them. My favorite story is a guy named Knox Martin. He's in South Nashville. There's a witch involved in this. There's a lady he's from Montgomery, Alabama. His mother told him to come to Nashville because there's more work after the Civil War. He's a former slave. Well, his mother was friends with a lady, they called her Aunt Mary. She was a voodoo priestess from Haiti who came to Nashville to live and work. So he's staying with her, and she's feeding him all this voodoo mumbo jumbo every single night. Well, he works on this plantation, and this guy just stops paying him. So she's like, oh, he wants to kill you. You need to go kill him. So she gets in his head, and he goes to confront the guy. You pay me the money. The guy is like, no, I'll get you later. He kills him and his wife in bed with a wooden wagon spoke. So they catch him eventually. They go on trial. He's found guilty. Well, while he's in jail, this guy named Dr. Summer and Dr. Sturger go to him. They say, look, we'll give you this silver. We want your body. So they hang him out there in a field in South Nashville where Tribeca University is now. And once it's over, back in the 1800s, execution was like a public spectacle. It was like a carnival, a fair. People would go and sell corn. They would sell apples. It was like a thing. So they go hang him in this field. There's thousands of people watching. Well, word gets out, hey, they're going to try to revive him. So they go back to this shed behind the gallows, and people climb up on the roof. They're tearing the roofing away. They're pulling the siding off the house, trying to watch the body being revived. So back then, they used galvanized body, which they had these cylinders. They would mix chemicals in them. Once the chemicals were mixed, it gave a current to the wires. So they put wires in the battery. They attach them to your spine, to your temples. Well, once the battery's activated, your body shot off the table. Your limbs move, your eyes open, your mouth moves like you're trying to talk. It's like the illusion of being alive, but it's just the current going through your body stimulating your muscles. So people are watching this happen. It's like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So after about 45 seconds or a minute, the battery died. He fell back. Well, the doctors took his body and they rushed to the Nashville Medical College, which is now the Ben West complex. So they put him on the table. They do the same experiments, but they don't tell anybody what happens. My theory is the doctor's going to write a pamphlet and sell it for money. So word gets out about this. 2 days later, the editor for the Tennessee and the local newspaper, he gets a letter. Hey, I met a guy named Knox Martin walking home to Alabama. says he was hanged in Nashville. Is this true? A couple days later, the doctors get a letter they gave to the newspaper saying, "Hey, I met a guy named Knox Martin in Lafayette. Can you let me know if you really brought him back to life?" He's walking home to his mother's house. So a few days after that, a guy who was on the jury that convicted Knox Martin got a 10-type picture photograph of Knox Martin that was taken in the jail, along with a piece of rope that was said to use to hang him. So I'm 99.9% sure this guy really died. But like Nashville for like a month was buzzing. Oh my gosh, Knox Martin's alive. He's walking back home to Alabama. There are reports of him walking to Kansas where he had cousins. It's nuts. I mean, it's ridiculous. But Nashville was convinced this guy was alive back in the 1870s.
Wow. That's cool. That is cool.
Also,
yeah, I was going to ask.
I'm trying to take all these stories I got and make them into screenplays because Hollywood can't make up this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've done some work with some research and stuff on Tesla and Edison and the battles that they had going on and stuff. And they talk about, kind of like the first time that they used electricity was for like executions and stuff like that. And all the stuff that was going on back then is just, like science fiction as well, like trying to kill people with electricity. And these guys are trying to bring them back. And wow, that's amazing.
But it's commonplace. I mean, it happened. I know it happened in South Nashville, it happened in Franklin, Tennessee. It happened in Knoxville, Tennessee. It happened in Chicago, St. Louis. I think it was Connecticut. I've got maybe 10 accounts I've kind of just researched where it was a thing. It was like a medical. They practiced it.
Huh. So but now, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it's just barbaric by today's standards. Back then, it was kind of this thing really works.
Well, I mean, like I was thinking as you were telling that story, it's not that far fetched. I mean, like, okay, if you take a guy out and you hang him, he died because he broke his neck and severed his nervous system, whatever it is, his spinal cord.
Fine, yeah.
Yeah. And so he ain't coming back. But nowadays we use, the paddles and stuff to electric shock people back from the dead. So, I mean, how many times did this actually work?
Well, Samuel Colt, I mean, this is another rabbit hole we can go down another day because it takes a while to tell the story. But Samuel Colt's brother, John, you know Samuel Colt, he's one of the wealthiest men in America. He modernized the Colt revolver. Well, his brother John was found guilty of murder. He went and met with doctors to see if it was possible to revive him with electricity when he was going to be hanged.
Wow. That's cool. Now I'm going to have to go down that rabbit hole. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Google John Colt. I mean, it's nuts.
Yes. That's amazing. All right. Very cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. And like I said, I look forward to meeting you in person when you come up here. And I definitely will have to have you back. And next time you get another book coming out or, after the convention and stuff, we'll have you back on the show.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. You take care. And I will talk to you in a couple of weeks.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yep. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. I am super excited. This is going to be a great event. I'm looking forward to meeting Alan in person. Coming up next week, I have a very special guest lined up that I've been working on for quite a while, actually several years since I did Monday Morning Monsters. I've been trying to get this guest on, and supposedly they are going to be on my show next week. So hopefully if that follows through and they show up, it's going to be a great show. Looking forward to it. If not, I don't want to spoil the surprise or, get my hopes up, but we'll see what happens next week. So guys, until next time, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you go subscribe to all of Alan's work and pick up his books on Amazon. The links are in the show notes. And until then, guys, remember, we are all part of the paranormal spectrum. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you next week.
You seem to know something I don't. What's going on?